Hello, my crafty friends. Today we're continuing our study of the dual nature of Jesus, and we're studying right now for the next probably 10 or 20 weeks. There's like 20, I think, sections. Anyway, for quite a while in the future, we're going to be studying the different aspects of Jesus's humanity. We already studied the fact that he was God, and now we're studying the ways he proclaims himself human. Are we not informed? Oh, well, let me stop right here for just a second. I've got these are the verses we're going to be reading today. There aren't as many as the last couple of times, so it'll be easier for you to find them in your Bible before we get going. If you want to do that, these are the ones that we're going to use, and John 1:14 is what we're going to use on the journal page. And so you can pause the video right here for just a minute and look those up and mark them. That's not necessary. You can just listen if you want. That's perfectly fine. But if you want to look them up, there they are. Are we not informed that when Jesus came into the world, he said, and let's just read it. Hebrews 10, verses 1 through 7. For the law, since it has only a shadow of the good things to come and not the very form of things, can never by the same sacrifices which they offer continually year by year make perfect those who draw near. Otherwise, would they not have ceased to be offered? Because the worshippers, having once been cleansed, would no longer have had a consciousness of sin. But in those sacrifices there is a reminder of the sins year by year. For it is impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins. Therefore, when he comes into the world, he says, Sacrifice and offering you have not desired, but a body you have prepared for me. In whole burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin you have taken no pleasure. Then I said, Behold, I have come. In the scroll of the book it is written of me, to do your will, O God. Born of a human mother and dependent upon her in childhood, his body grew in stature and his mind expanded in knowledge and wisdom. Later on, he came to speak of his body as a temple. John 2, verses 18 through 22. The Jews then said to him, What sign do you show us as your authority for doing these things? Jesus answered them, Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. The Jews then said, It took 46 years to build this temple, and you will raise it up in 3 days? But he was speaking of the temple of his body. So when he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he said this, and they believed the scripture and the word which Jesus has spoken. As a babe, he wore infant clothes and was held in the arms of aged Simeon, as well as in his mother's, whose firstborn son he was. That he was born is a historical fact, millions upon millions testify to as they date their letters today. Nothing could be more explicit than the genealogical item, Mary, of whom was born Jesus, or the declaration of Paul that Jesus became a partaker of the flesh and blood. And we're going to read 2 verses about that. Hebrews 2, verses 14 through 18 says, Therefore, since the children share in flesh and blood, he himself likewise also partook of the same, that through death he might render powerless him who had the power of death, that is the devil, and might free those who through fear of death were subject to slavery all their lives. For assuredly he does not give help to angels, but he gives help to the descendants of Abraham. Therefore, he had to be made like his brethren in all things, so that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make propitiation for the sins of the people. For since he himself was tempted in that which he has suffered, he is able to come to the aid of those who are tempted. So in order for Jesus, as God, to understand us better, he had to be like one of us, and he had to live his life sinless as one of us, so that he could make propitiation for the sins of his people. In John 1 through 14, And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we saw his glory, glory as of the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth. He appealed to the senses of his disciples to prove his humanity in Luke and in John. And this is Luke 24:36 through 40. While they were telling these things, Jesus himself stood in their midst and said to them, "Peace be to you." But they were startled and frightened and thought that they were seeing a spirit. And he said to them, "Why are you troubled? And why do doubts arise in your hearts? See my hands and my feet, that it is I myself? Touch me and see. For a spirit does not have flesh and bones, as you see that I have." And when he had said this, he showed them his hands and feet. John 20, verses 26 through 29. After 8 days, his disciples were again inside, and Thomas was with them. Jesus came to the doors, having been shut, and stood in their midst and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Reach here with your finger and see my hands. Reach here your hand and put it into my side. And do not be unbelieving, but believing." Thomas answered and said to him, "My Lord and my God." And Jesus said to him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are they who did not see and yet believed." Then there's John's great confession in John 1, verses 1 through 4. "What was from the beginning, what we have heard, what we have seen with our eyes, what we have looked at and touched with our hands concerning the word of life. And the life was manifested, and we have seen and testify and proclaim to you the eternal life which was with the Father and was manifested to us. What we have seen and heard we proclaim to you also, so that you too may have fellowship with us. And indeed our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. These things we write so that our joy may be made complete." As he ever illustrated by life the truth he taught, out of his body there flows rivers of living water, which have never ceased to refresh thirsty hearts in the dry and arid wilderness of this world. Next week we're going to talk about the fact that Jesus had a human soul. And just a second, sorry, I didn't bring my ruler. I'm going to need some scissors here in a minute too. Unless we'll grab them now. Okay. So John 1, verse 14 is the verse that we're putting on our page today. And it says, "And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we saw his glory, glory as of the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth." Okay. Now, when I was looking at this, I kind of like this as a background, and I thought, I'm kind of in the mood to do a fabric collage, and so that's what I'm going to do. And then I looked back over here and realized that's what I did last time I worked on this this paper. So this must inspire me to use fabric. This is wallpaper. All of the pages that I'm doing in this journal are wallpaper. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of funny that that's what I did 3 weeks ago. Yeah, 3 weeks ago. I've got this was a shirt, and I'm going to cut out some of these butterflies to use on here. And I've got these little bits of a sample, fabric sample, and I'm going to take some flowers out of here. I've got this kind of tulipy flower, and a couple of little flowers here. That's most of a flower there. And then I've got this big flower right here, and this flower right here. And if I need it, I could use this one here. So I've got some flowers I can use. And then I thought it would be fun to take leaves from a different fabric. So I've got this fabric, and there's different kinds of leaves that I can take from this fabric to use with those flowers. There are also flowers on this fabric, so I guess I could use it for flowers as well. But I think I'll probably have enough flowers when I do this. So I'm going to cut a flower or two out. Just for those of you who haven't ever seen people cut flowers out of fabric, you will know that it can be done. Oh, there's a little flower too, like a rosebud. Let's go ahead and take that one. And then I'll stop the camera and I'll finish cutting the rest out so that so there's a little rosebud. And let's take this big tulipy kind of thing too. I said I was going to show you, and then I got it out of camera. Sorry about that. Now this one has a definite stem, so I'm going to go ahead and leave the stem on there. I can cut it off later if I don't like it, but this upholstery fabric is much easier to cut than the more flimsy fabric like the butterflies. Let me just show you a little bit of that, and then I'm going to pause the camera. Trying to decide which ones I want to use. And what I'm going to do is just get this out of this big piece so I don't have to deal with the big piece. I do that when I'm fussy cutting paper too, but you kind of just have to hold the fabric however you can. And it really, really does work much better to go ahead and use your good fabric scissors to do this. Don't try to use your paper fussy cutting scissors. It really doesn't work very well. But you do it basically the same way, except it's floppier. I think the closest thing to cutting that's paper to cutting stuff out of fabric would be like maybe cutting stuff out of tissue paper or magazine page, a real thin magazine page. Okay, so there's the butterfly, and I'll draw on the antenna. It's too hard to cut the antenna out. Okay, I'm going to pause the camera and finish cutting this stuff out, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I got my 3 little piles, and I decided I'm going to put my verse right up here, and I'm going to go ahead and ink that up and glue it down, and then we're going to work around it. And I think I'm going to use this cornflower blue ink. Okay, and let's move these over. I'm not going to ink the fabric. I have before, but They're pretty strong, so I'm not going to worry about inking them, but I am going to ink the page a little bit. Let's make it not straight. Okay. Now then, let's go ahead and glue this down. Sorry, that's really noisy to do it that way. Okay. And I'm putting this right over here just because it gives a little more room, I think, for more flowers than if I did it up here or down here. So down here might be just as good, but anyway. So let's see what we've got. We've got these leaves, and this is the fabric I cut the leaves out of. And I just went ahead and left a little bit of the dark blue around the leaves because I think they show up better that way. So we'll see. I don't even know if there'll be room for the leaves, but because the flowers take up a lot of space. They're pretty big. I think there. I think I like that better. So we're going to put that one there, and we'll maybe have that one be tall. And add in some of the smaller flowers. Let's put that one over there where it shows up a little better. Maybe something like that. That looks pretty good, but if I want to add in some leaves, then we'll maybe tuck some around. And then we've got the butterflies. And I went ahead and cut these two out together because they were kind of attached, and I thought that might be cute. And this one, you know, is sitting on a flower. Trying to see where it would work the best. Maybe right there. And then I've got this one more that we could put in, but I think I'm just going to do the 3 butterflies. That one just takes up too much space. So this is kind of what I'm thinking. Now it's not going to be real easy to do it. So I think I'm going to start with this one because it's over there, and I can there's nothing on top of it or underneath it, so I can just put it on. Okay, and let's go ahead and do this one next. We'll see if we can just tuck them under, if they're supposed to be under, and go. Okay, and let's do this one. So far that's working pretty good. Trying to get that under there is not that easy, actually. Okay, and let's do this one. It's background. Well, that's not going to work. Okay. Alrighty, now then, what do we want to do next? I think this one. I could go to my art glitter glue, but right now this seems to be working pretty good. So my art glitter glue is put up somewhere. So okay, there's that. Let's move this out of the way. Let's do this one next. Make sure I'm not sitting it on glue from a previous flower. Okay. Okay, this is getting a little harder for me, so I'm going to just hope that I do it well from here on out. Getting those basic ones down, I think, helps. Okay, and then we're going to tuck these in here. Okay, so let's do these two real quick. I know I'm rearranging the flowers as I go. It just happens. I try very hard not to get married to the arrangement, because if I do, then I might be disappointed in the outcome. So when they don't end up exactly where I thought I was going to put them. Get a piece of fabric off there. All right, we're going to put this one down next. And then this one. Yeah. Whoops. And here's one more flower. And then we have this little butterfly. Tempted to have it up here, so maybe it shows up better. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay. Now that looks good. I'm wondering, should I go ahead and put this one on? I can't decide. I think I like it better without it, so. I'm trying to decide if I want to do anything else to this. Right now that's what it looks like, and I like it, but I'm wondering if I couldn't do something that might make it a little bit more well defined. But I'm afraid I'll ruin it, so I'm kind of in a quandary. I've got this pen. No, I don't think that one's. Okay, that might actually be. Is this the same size? Yeah, okay. I can't remember which one is the boldest of those little pens. Okay, that one's small. We don't want it. All right, I'm just gonna try this one, and if we don't like it, we will stop. And it probably would be wise to let this dry first. So I'm going to pause a minute, let it dry, and then we'll try. Okay, it's set a little bit, but I really need to get this done, so I'm just going to go ahead and try it. It's not completely dry. I don't know if this is going to help at all, so we'll go ahead and do a couple more. And I mostly want it where the flowers are intersecting each other, because they but I might as well go ahead on the paper if okay, sorry, got interrupted there for a second. I think that actually does help a little bit. So we'll just go ahead and go around the whole thing. I don't think I'm going to go around the leaves or the butterflies, but I'm just going to go around the flowers because that was what really needed more defining. This fabric is kind of a denim. This is an upholstery fabric. It's a lot easier to draw on the denim-y fabric than it is on the upholstery fabric. Okay. I think I'm pleased with it. John 1:14, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we saw his glory, glory as of the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth. Pray that God will be with you today. Bye-bye.